Now just try to follow this, and please, be very still inside as you do. The world has handed you a superstition and dressed it in respectability. It has told you that time is a power. Oh, no, no, no. Time is not a power. Spirit alone is power. Please remember that, because everything I will say rests on it. If you start with time as a power, you will end with fear, with pressure, with decline. If you start with spirit as the only power, you will end with peace. It is that categorical. It is that simple. The calendar, do you see it, has become a modern idol. Numbers, birthdays, milestones, deadlines, the count of years, the forecasts of seasons, the expectations that ride on a date circled in red. All of this is the mask of a false authority claiming jurisdiction over your being. It will whisper, "You are now this age, therefore you are permitted this much strength, this much beauty, this much hope." And you will bow, if you believe it has the right to speak. But the calendar is a clerk, not a judge. It records what has been counted. It does not decree what shall be. Please remember that. It measures the movement of human events, but it has no authority over being. Now then, let us make the line clear, because without clarity, you cannot be free. There are not two powers negotiating over you. There are two claims, yes, but not two powers. The so-called law of time speaks in measures, pressures, and predictions. The grace of spirit speaks in presence, being, and renewal. One will sit upon you with a weight and say, "Decline is inevitable." The other simply is, and because it is, life is. Which will you acknowledge? You cannot give consent to both. One must be the law of your life, or it is not law at all. And please understand what we are doing here. We are not trading you a technique for looking younger in the mirror. Oh no. We are not polishing the mask of the personal self. We are establishing a principle in consciousness, a foundation that withdraws power from time so completely that the calendar becomes harmless. A helpful schedule, perhaps, but never a master. We are not begging God to add years or subtract lines. We are recognizing that God is the life you are. God is, and that's enough to know. God is, that's all. From that recognition, the fear begins to evaporate of its own emptiness. So take this as our first step and hold it quietly. The calendar measures human events. It has no authority over being. Spirit alone is power. Every sentence that follows, every silence that follows, will circle back to this, because this is the way out of bondage to a number and into the freedom of I am. Thank you. Thank you. Now just try to follow this, because here is the great mix-up. The single confusion that creates a world of pain. We have mistaken counting for living. We have allowed measurement to masquerade as life. We have taken chronology, the lined-up beads of before and after, and called it destiny. Actually, there is no relationship between the two. They are entirely separate and distinct. One is a record, an after-the-fact notation. The other is being itself, spirit being spirit. Please remember this point, for if you miss it, you will find yourself negotiating with a number as if it were a sovereign. How does anxiety arise? By our own consent. The moment you grant time the right to speak as law, every number becomes a verdict. Too late, too old, behind schedule, running out. You feel it, don't you? A date approaches and the breath shortens. A mirror confronts and the mind calculates. An application asks your age and a silent judge is seated. And you, innocent as doves yet untrained in principle, accept the robe and gavel of that judge and bow to it. But it has no jurisdiction over being. It can only rule over belief. Oh, no, no, no. Time cannot be a law over spirit. It never was. It never will be. It can appear as a law over matter and human belief, yes, just as darkness appears to rule until the light is switched on. If you identify as flesh and years, you will seem to feel its lash. If you awaken to spirit as your identity, time dissolves at the threshold. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty, and liberty is not timed. Now look at the symptoms that spring from this one confusion. See their family likeness, so you may refuse them at the door. The fear of decline, as if life could grow thin. The fear of missing out, as if your portion were dealt by a calendar. The fear of lost attractiveness, as if beauty were a pigment rather than presence. The fear of reduced opportunity, as if supply were seasonal rather than infinite. And beneath them all, the fear of death, as if life could abandon its own being. They all shout from the same mistaken pulpit, "Time is your master." And we, without principle, have answered, yes. Please remember, relief will not come by saying nicer things about your age, by painting brighter thoughts over the same foundation. Not positive thinking, not slogans, not the polishing of appearances. Principle, not phenomenon. It is necessary that we know the principle through which harmony is achieved, and it is this: God is being, your being. Therefore, no external measure can assign you to loss or limit. God is removes the judge because it removes the premise of a second power. Rest there. God is, and that's enough to know. God is, that's all. From that recognition, the verdicts fall silent, and what remains is life unmeasured, life at peace. Now just try to follow this, and please remember it as a cornerstone. There are two realms presented to human sense, KRONOS and spirit. And actually, there is no relationship between the two. They are entirely separate and distinct. Do not try to make them cooperate as equals. Oh, no, no, no. One belongs to the realm of phenomena, of sequence, of before and after. The other is being itself, presence without measure, life without opposite. KRONOS deals with days and years, with clocks and calendars, with biographies and anniversaries and deadlines. It records history. It strings events like beads along a thread and calls that thread a life. It reports appearances, bodies changing, fashions turning, fortunes rising and falling. It predicts according to averages and probabilities. It is useful for catching a train, for meeting at 3 o'clock on Tuesday, for remembering a harvest season. But it has no jurisdiction over being. Spirit is not in sequence. Spirit is I am. Spirit is wholeness, completeness that does not await a date to be real. It is the now that does not begin and cannot end, the presence that constitutes life itself. Please remember, spirit does not improve an appearance. Spirit reveals reality. Spirit does not enter into the stream of time to push the beads around. Spirit is the light by which the beads are seen as beads and not as identity. In Him we live and move and have our being. That is not a timed event. That is being itself. One realm deals with days and years. The other deals with now. One realm deals with appearances. The other deals with reality. One consults averages and forecasts. The other simply is. One threatens with verdicts, too late, too old, behind. The other silences verdicts with presence. One is a tool for arranging human activities. The other is the authority of life. Which will you acknowledge as yourself? Here is the meaning for identity. And here you must be very firm. You are not a timeline trying to survive its own numbers. You are not the biography the world has written in ink made of memory and expectation. You are an expression of being. God constitutes your being. Therefore, your life is not the product of years, but the outpouring of spirit. Please remember this. You cannot be both the date-stamped figure the world counts and the living self that God is. One must be your accepted identity, or you will be forever divided, interpreting spiritual truth through the lens of a calendar and wondering why fear remains. Now then, as students, as disciples, let us face the temptation that derails so many. We try to make spirit serve time. We pray for energy to meet the schedule, for youth to satisfy the mirror, for extensions on deadlines that frighten us. And by that very approach, we enthrone KRONOS and ask grace to assist it. Oh no, that is the great impossibility. My kingdom is not of this world. Neither is your life dependent on its clocks. Spirit alone is the realm of being. Stand there. Let KRONOS fall back into its rightful place as a harmless clerk that files what has already occurred. Refuse to let it speak law to you. Rest in I am. God is, and that's enough to know. God is, that's all. From that recognition, you will feel the quiet shift, not a negotiation between two authorities, but the cessation of a false claim. And this prepares the heart for the only honest next step, to choose grace as law, to live from spirit, and let time be the instrument, never the master. Now just try to follow this, and please hold it as a definition you can live by. Law, in the spiritual sense, is not ink on paper. It is mental government. What governs your awareness governs your experience. When you accept a belief as determinative, you have made it law unto yourself. So the calendar, harmless as a clerk, puts on a robe and becomes a judge the minute you accept its sentences. At this age, you must decline. By this year, you must achieve. After this birthday, you must narrow your hope. Before that anniversary, you must prove yourself. Do you see it? A suggestion becomes a statute by your consent. Oh, no, no, no. Grace is not a kinder version of that judge. Grace is not a medal for managing time well, not a reward for sprinting through your to-do lists, not a wage paid to the efficient. Grace is the revelation that life is God, already present as being, and therefore unmeasured and unthreatened. Grace removes the judge by removing the premise of a second authority. God is, and that's enough to know. God is, that's all. In that knowing, the robe falls off the calendar. It is seen again as a tool, never a tribunal. Please remember this, because here is where many stumble. Not willpower, not biohacks, not frantic improvement, not comparison. All of these, though they may change in appearance for an hour or a season, secretly enthrone the false law. They say, time is Lord, but I will outsmart it. They say, the judge is real, but I will argue my case persuasively. And because the premise is wrong, the peace never comes. Students, disciples, one must make a choice of one or the other. Rarely will the right results come from the combination of them. Now look at how the world props up the bench, so you will not think to question it. Marketing whispers from every screen. Anti-aging, age-defying, before and after, each word a hymn to a false law. Career clocks tick. Entry-level, mid-career, peak, retire, an assembly line for souls. Social media calls your very page a timeline and arranges your being into dated proofs. And then the ritual of birthday dread, candles lit as if for a vigil, jokes that normalize fear, a chorus rehearsed to keep the judge employed. Oh no, all of that is hypnosis. It does not govern being. It governs only belief. Now then, here is the spiritual turn, simple and immediate. Grace begins the moment you withdraw consent. Silently, in your own heart, you can do it now. I do not recognize the calendar as law. I recognize God as being, my life. Enter into thy closet and shut the door. Shut it to anniversaries of fear, to the drumbeat of averages, to the shoulds that file motions against your joy. Rest, even briefly, in I am. Not pleading for more years, realizing life that is. From that rest, a quiet evidence appears. Not noise, not spectacle, peace. And in that peace, the false judge has no voice, no gavel, no case. The calendar stands down. The inner government returns to grace, and being, unmeasured, unafraid, governs. Thank you. Thank you. Now just try to follow this, because here we come to the hinge upon which the door swings. Every tyrant of the mind rules by borrowed authority. Fear gains its strength from your consent. The calendar has no breath, no will, no power to decree. It is a sheet of paper, a screen of pixels, a parade of digits, until you anoint it. Please remember that. The gavel it wields is the one you placed in its hand. Withdraw consent, and there is no gavel, no bench, no courtroom. The number falls back to what it always was, a notation of an event, not a law over being. You notice how the mind rehearses the number. It repeats it like a charm. 40, 50, 60, 70. Then strings meanings onto it. Too late, too old, behind, almost over. And in that rehearsal, you feel the pressure rise as if a sentence had been read. Oh no, no, no. The number reports nothing about being. It does not report your life because it does not constitute your life. It only reports that on a certain human date an appearance occurred. That is all. Spirit is your life, and spirit is not in the arithmetic of before and after. If you accept the arithmetic as your judge, you will bow before your own imagination. Now then, a decision is required. Not tomorrow, not when the mirror is kinder, not when the world stops advertising decline. One must make a choice of one or the other. Either live under the so-called law of time, or stand in the liberty of spirit. Do not attempt a mixture. A divided house will always shake. Please remember, to let time rule is not a small mistake. It is to dishonor spirit by implying that the infinite is measured, that God answers to a clock. That is idolatry wearing a modern face. We will not do it, we as disciples. We will not attribute sovereignty to a calendar and then ask God to assist it. How then do we withdraw consent? Quietly, immediately, within. The moment you feel the number rise like a wave, do not argue with it and do not decorate it with a better number. Simply remove recognition. Enter into thy closet. Say, not to persuade God, but to clarify consciousness, I do not acknowledge the calendar as law. God is my life. God is my strength. God is my peace. God is, and that's enough to know. God is, that's all. Rest there a moment. In that rest, you will notice the wave cannot find a shore. It fades for lack of your sanction. Make it practical. When forms require a date, give it. But give it as one would supply a street address, without reverence, without dread. When the mind starts its recital, birthdays, milestones, averages, answer once, quietly. Not law. Spirit alone governs me. Then be still. Please remember, our work is not to fix the number. Our work is to refuse it a throne. And from this hour forward, let there be a daily stance, a simple inner government that keeps the bench empty. Each morning, even for a minute, acknowledge, God is my being, therefore time is a tool, not a master. Hold to that recognition in small ways and large, and we will be ready for what follows. Stabilizing this freedom in peace, in communion, in the humble practice that carries grace into the hours. Thank you. Thank you. Now just try to follow this, because here's the core revelation without which the rest becomes mere talk. We do not ask Spirit for life, for vitality, for youth, for strength, as if these were coins in a divine treasury to be dispensed on request. Oh, no, no, no. God does not give life. God is life. God does not send you vitality. God is the very vitality of your being. Please remember that. If you hold God as the giver and yourself as the receiver, you have already drawn a line of separation. And where there is separation, the calendar will seem to rule. But if God is being, and being is the I am that constitutes you, then life is not added to you by time or taken from you by time. It is the presence of God as you, now. So let us turn the thought completely, and do it now. Do not reach outward. Rest inward. God is. God is life. God is strength. God is wholeness. God is my being. Say it quietly, not to persuade a distant deity, but to let the fog of petition dissolve. God is. God is. God is. And that's enough to know. In that simple recognition, the entire premise changes. From hoping for a future phenomenon to realizing a present principle. Principle over phenomenon. Understanding over wish. Being over becoming. Decline. What is it but a hypothesis that life resides in matter and therefore must answer to matter's clocks? Please notice, the only aging that terrifies is the belief that I am separate from life and housed in a body that is subject to before and after. If you accept that, you will fear averages, milestones, and forecasts because your supposed life is on their leash. But if you know, not merely say, that God is your life, you cannot be cut off from your source, you cannot run out of what is infinite, and you cannot be measured by numbers written on paper. Separation invents decline. Union reveals completeness. Now then, renewal. Do not push it into tomorrow, as if the Spirit were scheduled. Renewal is not a future event. It is the now of being recognized. They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength, not because a power comes from elsewhere, but because the whirl of belief subsides, and what is eternally present shows forth. Please remember, when you try to engineer youthful appearances, you remain in the arena of the judge. When you stand in I am, the judge has no case. The effect may be felt as freshness, as energy, as clear seeing, yes, but these are not prizes won from time. They are evidences of grace as the false premise dissolves. Enter then, not into contest, but into communion. Enter into thy closet and be still. 1 minute will do if it is single. God is my life. God is my strength. God is my peace. God is, and that's all. Let the words fall into your own heart until a quiet comes that is not manufactured. That peace is the first sign that the calendar has lost authority, because peace cannot exist where a second power is feared. Hold to that peace for a breath, for a handful of breaths, and you will know by the knowing itself that vitality is spiritual, that being is unmeasured. And from there the hours go free, and you go free in them, unhurried, unthreatened, upheld by what is, because God is. Thank you. Thank you. Now just try to follow this, because here the work changes from argument to experience. The healing is peace. Not a younger face in the mirror, not a faster step for an afternoon, not a compliment wrung from the world. Oh, no, no, no. The first liberation from age is not cosmetic. It is peace. Because peace proves you have stepped out of time's jurisdiction. Please remember that. Where there is stillness, there is no judge. Where there is presence, there is no second power to contend. This is not fighting age. This is ceasing from the fight altogether by entering the now, where spirit is realized as present. How do we do it? Very simply, very quietly, and immediately. Relax. Relax mentally and physically in the assurance that here and now, God is. Not tomorrow when you have more time. Not later when you feel more spiritual. Here and now, God is. Enter into thy closet, not a room, but that inner hush where thought releases its grip. And let the breath soften. Say within yourself, not loudly, not persuasively, just honestly. God is. God is my life. God is my peace. God is, and that's all. Let the words sink below words until they are no longer phrases, but awareness. Stay a minute, 2 minutes, 5 if the grace holds you, but do not strain for a result. The result is the presence. The result is the peace that passeth understanding. Please remember the sequence, because if you reverse it, you will lose the way. Peace first, then the harmonies follow. Not laws of matter, but the grace of spirit. As you rest in the actual felt awareness that God is, the body resumes its order because the fear that disordered it is dismissed. The mind clears because it has come home to its center. Life patterns, relationships, and even the so-called practical affairs take on rhythm. Not because you pushed them into place, but because you ceased to let a false law drive them. We in this work have witnessed it 1,000 times. The hush comes, and afterward, hours, days, sometimes moments, the outer effects align. Do not chase the effects. Abide in the cause. God is, and that's enough to know. God is. That's all. Now then, let us neutralize the motor of fear. Time pressure thrives on projection. Tomorrow's problem, next year's loss, the curve that supposedly awaits you at a certain number. That is imagination made into tyranny. Communion stops the projector. In the now, there is no tomorrow to fear. There is presence to know. You cannot be anxious and be present. You cannot be present and be anxious. The moment you feel the push of hurry, of too late, of What if? Answer it not by arguing, but by returning. Relax. Relax mentally and physically in the assurance that here and now God is. Say it once, mean it once, and be still. The wave passes. And now, just a word to prepare you for the triggers you will surely meet. Birthdays, photographs, chance comparisons, the casual remark about age. Each one is not a trap, but a bell. Let it ring you back to the closet. When the cake appears and the candles try to prophesy, smile inwardly and withdraw recognition. Not law. When the photo startles, use it as a signal to breathe and rest in I am. When comparison bites, answer with silence, step aside within, and re-enter peace. Do not perform youth. Do not explain your practice. Keep it secret, keep it humble, and let being reveal itself as a quiet, steady composure. From that composure you will walk through the hours untouched, because the jurisdiction has changed. You are living from now, and in the now, time cannot enter. Thank you. Thank you. Now just try to follow this, because here is where the truth is proved or ignored, in the plain daylight of little moments. Every age trigger is an altar call. Either you submit to time's verdict, or you quietly return to the truth that being is spiritual. Please remember, time is not a power. Spirit alone is power. God is. If you will carry just that into the ordinary becomes holy, and the calendar loses its teeth. Birthday morning. You wake and the world has rehearsed a script for you. More candles, more worry, more jokes made to hide the dread. Oh, no, no, no. Before the first thought gets traction, enter into thy closet. One breath. God is. God is my life. My life is not in time. My life is in God. Let the phone buzz with greetings. Let the cake come if it comes. But inwardly, deny the robe to the judge. Celebrate love, yes. Refuse the superstition. This day is not an increment of decline. It is, as all days are, an occasion for presence. The mirror. It confronts you when the mind is unguarded. The old habit is measurement. Compare, compute, conclude. Stop. Please remember, time is not a power. Spirit alone is power. Then replace the automatic thought. When the mind says, I'm running out, answer once, quietly. My life is not in time. My life is in God. Not argument, recognition. Look again, not at features, but from presence. You are not trying to like an appearance. You are standing in identity. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. Liberty from the sentence concealed in comparisons. Medical forms. They ask a number. Give it as you would give a street address, and give no homage with it. The pen does not consecrate a law. As you write, say within, not law. God is my life. In that instant, the clerk remains a clerk. The bench stays empty. Reunions. Old acquaintances approach with timelines in their eyes. Who advanced? Who slowed? Who still looks good for? Smile, offer kindness, but keep your practice in secret. Do not perform youth, and do not confess to time. Rest an inch within. God is my being, therefore I am not a biography. Social media memories. On this day, the bait is comparison with yourself. Oh no. Use it as a bell. Close the app or look without swallowing the hook. But in either case, return to I am. Career benchmarks, the world's ladders. By 30, by 40, by 60. These are the liturgies of a false sanctuary. You may use calendars to meet appointments, to plan projects, to bless your neighbors with reliability. But refuse them authority over identity and worth. Tools, not masters. Please remember this distinction, for fanaticism is only another mask of fear. We are not tearing clocks from walls. We are tearing crowns from suggestions. God is, and that's enough to know. God is, that's all. Now then, if you listen beneath these triggers, you will hear the drum that drives them, the fear that there is an end, the grave at the horizon of every number. That is the last weapon of time. We will not hurry past it, because grace does not evade. Grace reveals. In the light of spirit, death is unmasked as a belief about life, not a law over life. Hold to your daily practice, and we will walk there next, into the root, so that even that shadow loses its voice and being stands free. Thank you. Thank you. Now just try to follow this, because here we take hold of the root, and we do it plainly. Most so-called aging anxiety is not about lines on a face or dates on a form. It is the dread of disappearance, the whisper of irrelevance, the picture of a grave waiting like a deadline, the calendar as executioner. Please remember, unless we expose that unspoken center, we will keep trimming branches while the root feeds them. So let us bring it into the light and look with the eyes of spirit. Oh, no, no, no. Death is not a law over life. It is a belief about life, and it governs only so long as we mistake the realm. KRONOS can count arrivals and departures, can chisel names and dates on stones, can note that a form appeared and no longer appears. But actually there is no relationship between KRONOS and spirit. They are entirely separate and distinct. Spirit is being. Spirit is life. What is spirit cannot age. What is eternal cannot be timed. What is God cannot die. If God is life, how can life end? If being is, how can being become not being? Answer it in your own heart, and see how the threat shrinks to a shadow without substance. Now then, do not misunderstand me. We are not denying human experience. We are relocating identity. We are not mocking sorrow or pretending that partings do not sting the senses. No, we are saying, as disciples and not as the world, that we stop identifying as a body traveling toward an end, and we start knowing ourselves as life expressing itself. The body is an instrument through which being appears for a season. The grave can receive forms, it cannot receive spirit. I am the resurrection and the life, not a promise of future repair, but a declaration of what is. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty, and liberty is not buried. Please remember the method. Enter into thy closet. We do not run from the fear. We do not argue with it. We rest in the only fact that has authority. God is. God is my life. God is my being. God is, and that's enough to know. God is. That's all. Sit there a minute, 2, until the inner noise quiets. Say within, gently, not law, not the law of time, not the decree of averages, not the superstition of everyone must. You are not asking for more years. You are recognizing life without years. And the proof that you have stepped outside the jurisdiction is peace. The sting loses its poison in the now, because the judge has no bench there. Rhetorically ask yourself until conviction becomes natural. If God is life, what is there to fear? If I live and move and have my being in God, where is the border where life ceases? Can the infinite retire? Can the eternal expire? Oh no. Only separation could invent such a picture, and separation is the dream we are waking from. Union is the reality we are accepting. And now, a word of safeguard, humility and secrecy. Do not perform immortality. Do not parade bravado about deathlessness. Keep this revelation in the sanctuary of your own heart. Enter into thy closet, and let the Father which seeth in secret stabilize you. Meet human sorrow with tenderness, not with slogans. Let your peace, not your claims, be the witness. Every attempt to decorate the personal self with this truth will deprive us of its help, but kept secret and humble, it governs. When identity is restored to spirit, time loses its last weapon. The calendar lays down its sword because life is not timed. Walk softly in that recognition. God is, and that's enough to know. God is, that's all. Thank you. Thank you. Now just try to follow this, because here is the spiritual mechanism by which the calendar loses its last leverage. Truth works most powerfully when it is not used to decorate the personal self. Please remember that. Enter into thy closet, shut the door to display. Do not argue about age. Do not announce your new mindset. Do not make a show of spiritual attainment. Oh, no, no, no. The moment we begin to perform youth, we step back into comparison, and comparison is the calendar's favorite tool. The ego says, "Let me wear this truth as a medal," and by that very impulse, it drags you into timelines, before and after, better and worse, younger and older. That is the trap. The truth that would free you becomes a mirror in which the self admires itself, and in that gaze, the judge reappears. Please remember the teaching that never fails. Thy Father which seeth in secret shall reward thee openly. Not when you broadcast it, not when you convince your neighbors, not when you win the debate about aging. In secret, in humility, in the quiet where there is no performer left to impress. Be grateful if you have no personal understanding, because then His understanding is infinite. Be grateful if you have no method to present, no boast to make, no strategy to parade. That is the very condition in which the divine understanding can operate unobstructed. I can of mine own self do nothing. Say it and mean it, and you will feel the soft hand that lifts without effort, without audience, without applause. Now then, let us expose another subtlety. Anti-aging striving, however sophisticated, is still self-hypnosis if it enthrones appearance as identity. It is the same dance in a different costume. It says, "I will manage time better than others. I will outpace decline." Oh no, that is to keep the judge alive by flattering him. True renewal is self-abnegation, letting the self step back so being may reveal itself. Relax, quietly, in the assurance that here and now, God is. Do not chant youth as a slogan. Do not post it. Do not perform it. Keep it secret, keep it humble, and watch what happens. The Father in secret gives the open evidence. Composure, peace, vitality without anxiety. Not a phenomenon wrestled from time, but the grace of spirit seen. Practical? Very. When a remark about age comes, you need not correct it. You need not counterclaim. You need not say, "I am ageless," as if staking ground in a quarrel. Smile inwardly. Retire half an inch into the closet. Acknowledge, God is my being. Let the conversation have the world's topic. You keep the inner hush. When a compliment comes, you look good for. Do not sip the poison in the sugar. Receive kindness, offer kindness, but give no homage to the number. And when the mind itself wants to advertise your discovery, tell them, prove it. Answer with silence. Please remember, every attempt to glorify the personal self will deprive us of God's help. We are speaking here not to the world's vanity project, but to disciples choosing spirit. We are talking not to those who would use God to polish a mask, but to those who would let the mask fall and live from I am. One must make a choice of one or the other. My kingdom is not of this world, neither is our practice for applause. Keep it in secret. Keep it in humility. Let being govern. God is, and that's enough to know. God is, that's all. Thank you. Thank you. Now just try to follow this, because here we must draw the boundary with both warmth and firmness. We are not addressing the world's obsession with timelines, ladders, and countdowns. Oh, no, no, no. We are speaking to students who want liberty, to disciples who are willing to live from another government. Please remember this: the disciple does not negotiate with the calendar. The disciple lives of spirit and lets time take its proper place as a mere instrument, useful for setting appointments, harmless in determining identity. Who then is a disciple? One who refuses false laws, however widely accepted. One who stands single-pointedly with spirit. One who measures life not by the applause of progress or the arithmetic of birthdays, but by inner peace, by love lived, by the sense of presence that abides when the noise is quiet. One must make a choice of one or the other. Actually, there is no relationship between the two systems. KRONOS and spirit are entirely separate and distinct. The world will offer you strategies for aging well under law. The disciple releases law altogether and abides in grace. Please remember that distinction, or you will try to keep one foot on the dock and one in the boat, and you will be pulled in two directions until peace is lost. What emerges practically when we live this way? Not fireworks, not spectacle, but something better. Steadiness. Presence clears. We listen more deeply because we are not rushing to defend or display ourselves. Urgency eases. Our steps find rhythm. Work becomes service rather than a race. We show up when called. We do what is ours to do. And we do not grind our souls against a deadline's fear. Comparison fades because we no longer seek proof in faces, fortunes, or timelines. Gratitude grows because being proves itself as sufficiency in the moment. You will notice more kindness in the voice, more patience in decision, less drama in change. These are the open rewards of a secret practice, not the ornaments of a personality attempting to be spiritual. Now then, let us say it together in the heart. We are learning to live as though God is the only government, and therefore age is not our ruler. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. Liberty from sentence, liberty from the inner clerk who keeps score. Liberty from the silent bargain that says, if I keep up, I am safe. Oh no, safety is not in keeping up. Safety is in being kept, in God. Please remember, the way of the disciple must be simple, or it will not be lived. So condense the whole of this teaching into a daily mantra and a simple inner act. The mantra is the gospel of our work. God is. God is my life. God is my peace. God is, and that's all. The act is this. Enter into thy closet. Relax mentally and physically in the assurance that here and now, God is. Do it morning, even for a minute, before you look at a screen or a mirror. Do it at the door of each appointment. One breath, inwardly. Not law. God is my being. Do it when a timeline is waved in your face. Career, family, health. Answer once within and be still. Then let the hours proceed as tools in your hand, not chains on your wrist. We are not trying to convert the world's calendar. We are consenting to be disciples beyond age. Quietly, humbly, steadily, let being govern. God is, and that's enough to know. God is. That's all. Thank you. Thank you. Now just try to follow this, because here is the whole path in one simple stance. So simple you can live it today and every day. Each morning before the world speaks, before the mirror, before the scroll, enter into thy closet, not a room, a hush. Pause. Relax mentally and physically in the assurance that here and now, God is. Do not reach out. Let go in. Here and now, God is. Say it once, mean it once, and be still. If a thought comes to count years or forecast outcomes, answer it gently without quarrel. Not law. Here and now, God is. Then rise and go about the day, letting the hours be tools, not masters. Please remember the three-part refrain that will carry you through every trigger moment, every appointment, every surprise. Time is not a power. Spirit alone is power. God is, and that's enough to know. Let it be your inward answer when the birthday appears, when the form asks your age, when a headline whispers averages. Time is not a power. Spirit alone is power. God is, and that's enough to know. Not loudly, not as a charm, as recognition, as deference to the only authority there is. Now then, continuity. Oh no, no, no. Do not hunt for fireworks. Do not test the sky for omens. Seek steadiness. If peace remains, even a small, unshowy peace, then the principle is being lived, not merely believed. The healing is the peace. The effects follow as they will, when they will, without strain. If agitation returns, do not diagnose yourself. Do not dramatize a setback. Simply pause and take the stance again. Relax and acknowledge omnipresence. Here and now, God is. Let the wave break and pass. This is not a contest of will. It is a returning to what is. Please remember, we are not battling age. That would be to concede a second power. We are awakening from a belief, and awakening has no opponent. When you rest in I am, life flows without pressure. Work becomes service. Relationships become kindness. Decisions become simple because you are not hurrying to outrun a clock. You are abiding in being. Freedom is not later. It is the absence of threat now. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. And liberty feels like quiet in the center, while the hours circle harmlessly around. So live one simple way. Morning. Pause. Relax. Here and now, God is. midday and midnight, at the smallest bell of fear or comparison. Pause. Relax. Here and now, God is. Carry the refrain as a soft lamp in the heart. Time is not a power. Spirit alone is power. God is, and that's enough to know. Keep it secret, keep it humble, keep it steady, and let the Father, which seeth in secret, reward you openly with peace. God is, and that's all. Thank you. Thank you.